evening once again, and welcome to our live Doctor and Call program. It is a pleasure, as always, to be with you every Tuesday evening. Of course, we bring you your favorite program, and we know it's your favorite program from, of course, all the wonderful responses and feedback that we get, on a daily basis. So we welcome all our listeners on K105 FM, our viewers on GBN Television 7 and 11, also our friends on our Facebook page and the YouTube channel in the US, Canada, of course, wherever you are. We are indeed very happy to have you with us. 2 weeks ago, we started our discussion on the social determinants of health, and that was all part of Public Health Awareness Month. Well, I'll tell you what, public health awareness doesn't remain within a month. Public health awareness is an ongoing thing, probably more than any other area of health. And I hope Doc would agree with me when she comes on to greet you. But I do believe, public health is where it starts. And if we can, manage that very well, we'll probably be on our way to living very healthy lives. Yeah. So this week we continue looking at the social determinants of health in more detail. Last week we focused quite a bit on housing and of course our neighborhood. This evening we want to look at the educational aspect of things and how that is connected to your health. And of course, if time permits, then we can probably start looking at social aspects as well. All right. Of course, tomorrow being May Day, many people will be out, as they celebrate Workers' Day and all their hard work and achievements. I think it's in St. Patrick this year, and then we know a lot is going to be happening. Keep in mind, it's very hot outside, so, teachers, workers, whatever area you're in, please remember to wear adequate clothing or appropriate clothing that should be, as it relates to the high temperatures outside. So it's a pleasure to welcome Doc. Doc, good evening. It's such a pleasure to have you back. How was the past 7 days?
Hot.
Yes, indeed.
For some reason, it seems to get hotter as the evening goes, and there's all this dew in the night because there's so much humidity. So you get up in the morning and think it has rained. Well, there's a little fine drizzle this morning, but there's water coming through out of the spouts because it's drizzled in the night, because it's dewed in the night.
Yeah.
We look forward to some rain falling soon, and at least the temperature's dropping. But that seemed to be a little way off. I think late in the end of the week, there's some hope that we have some rain.
Well,
and I hope we do. I hope it's not too heavy so that we don't have floods and all the rest of it.
Last night, Doc, in the evening newscast, the folks at NAWASA, they made some revelation that what they anticipated as it relates to water supply, they are below that. So, the season is hotter than anticipated.
And drier.
So,
have you driven through River Road? Have you looked at the line where the butchery is?
No, I haven't been to that side,
it's
but
like 2 feet down.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a challenge. It calls for us to save water.
Yeah, definitely.
It also calls for things like making sure that the water that you collect is properly covered.
Yes, indeed.
Because again, with all of climate change, what we're seeing is more mosquitoes.
That's right.
And more mosquitoes, and mosquitoes love this weather. It's warm, it's humid. Ooh, this is their breeding time.
Definitely.
1 drop of water and they're gone clear. Remember that more dengue you have, the more you're likely to have hemorrhagic dengue, which is mostly fatal if you're not identified early.
Right.
So please remember, this is a time when we cover the water that we've collected. Make sure you have either mesh or cloth over the drum, or you have a proper cover over your drum so that the mosquitoes don't get in there and lay their eggs and
Doc,
produce larvae.
just as an aside though, as we mentioned climate change and mosquitoes, high temperatures and mosquitoes, one of the things the science seems to focus a lot on as it relates to ideal conditions for mosquitoes and other insects is malaria, especially in African countries and so. What are the chances in our region?
Equal to everywhere, because one of the things we're seeing, and again, I tell you, I'm doing this online thing with climate change and health, and we see it in areas where there've never been mosquitoes, like in some, as an Argentinian speaker today, and she's saying places that they've never had mosquitoes, they've seen, if you see 4 or 5 in a place there is none, that's 400%, okay?
Yeah.
Increase. So what we're seeing is because of the warmth and other situation, simply because the temperature, the warm temperatures are going more and more to the north, right? We're already warm and hot, so we know the precautions we should take to preserve our health. Make sure if you can close your windows, especially in the early evening for the
Aedes aegypti mosquitoes.
Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, those look one that look like they
have silver strips.
They have these whitish silvery spots.
Mm-hmm.
The truth is they come in the morning as well, not just in the evening. In the morning, and if they get a chance to bite you in the day, they will. But they tend to be a little more dormant towards the midday, but certainly in the morning and evening time, sunset. So come home, close up your windows if you can. I know it's hot, but you're going to have to put in mesh, some of us, but make sure that you have no place for the mosquitoes to breed, right? And no place and little access to inside of your house, because they will hide under your furniture and they hide behind your toilet bowl and they hide in your closet and hide.
Yes.
And once they feel your warmth in the room, they start hunting. They come for blood. They need blood. The female mosquitoes need blood to feed their larvae. They can have more baby mosquitoes, and we need to make sure that they don't have access. The other thing is sometimes you think, oh, well, I have dengue already. It don't matter if mosquito bite me. Yes, it does matter if mosquito bite you if you have dengue, because you're likely to be able to pass that virus that a mosquito carries on.
But there are other, I just mentioned malaria. These are things that we don't hear a lot about in our region, but it's not.
We haven't seen malaria for a long time, but malaria is endemic to the region.
Yes,
we don't have it currently because we don't have it's Anopheles.
Yes.
Right. And so, like I tell you, when I was a child, it was a long time ago, but when I was a child, when we were children, you only read about was it the Aedes aegypti in a book?
Yes.
You never saw it. Dengue was not part of our health geography at all. So now that we have times of change, you have more travel and all the rest of it. So people are actually seeing dengue. But dengue is relatively new. Dengue happened after I came out of medical school, which is quite a few years, but dengue was not existent in our region. So again, travel makes it easy. I can leave here today and be in China tomorrow night, halfway across the globe, or anywhere. I can. I'm not saying that's where dengue is or anything is. I'm saying I can go to anywhere. Look at how chikungunya.
Yes.
And not even chikungunya.
Yes.
Look how COVID-19 spread across the world, recognizing its origin in China, and in a month it was almost everywhere. It was considered a pandemic within a month.
Yes.
So things will happen, things will spread, and we'll have challenges. So let's be responsible, let's be careful, knowing that we're at risk.
And yes, definitely don't take things for granted. So,
no, because those things are also socially determined.
Yes.
What kind of environment we live in, the level of education we have, what facilities are there to access care, preventative care, or knowledge.
Are we in an economic position to deal with it if we become
right?
Yes,
so those are the things. Where do we work? What do we do? how we entertain ourselves. Are we going on the beach even when mosquito, by the river and have party when mosquitoes raging? Those decisions we're going to have to make in order to remain healthy.
Right. Yeah. So
you also mentioned something tonight about public health, and I want us to understand this whole concept of public health. Public health is basically looking across the board and seeing how best you can manage wellness among the population, among entire populations. Okay? In 1978, we Grenada signed into the Alma Ata Convention, where we started to look at primary care, meaning health center care, primary care physicians, your GP, okay, your
general practitioner,
your general practitioner, whoever you call it, your primary care physician, whatever it is, were the ones who took care. The focus is supposed to really be on preventing disease, and we have to get back to that point. So even if you may go to your primary care physician or go to the health center and not get a prescription. It might just be a matter of checking your blood pressure. It might just be a matter of checking your blood sugar to make sure that it's okay, right? And looking at ideal weights, looking at your cholesterol, looking at checking your breast for cancer, male and female, doing a pap smear or a VIA examination, doing a rectal examination, looking at your stool to see there's blood in there, checking your lungs, whatever it is. Or children, are they healthy? What the teeth is like? Do we have all our vaccines? All of those things are very important. One of the determinants is whether it's accessible, whether it's available and accessible. Mm-hmm. And that probably speak about this a little as we go along. But those facilities ought to be available so that people can have a certain level of equity. That thing where the access is there for everybody, and we can all take care of what we want to achieve as part of our well-being. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, well-being in particular, right. Well-being, and your health. Are we free from disease? Can we control disease? Because you can have high blood pressure and sugar and other things and be well, and stay healthy.
Yes.
Okay, have it under control. So all of those things. But what is it that makes you really healthy? What is it that contributes those non-medical things? I'm not talking about whether you have antibiotics or high blood pressure medications or insulin or dental equipment. That's what we're talking about right here. Whether you have surgical equipment and those things, those are other determinants. Mm-hmm. Though the things that we meet in our society, like I said, where we work, where we play, everything that contribute to our state of health, those are the social determinants we have to take care. And is it our responsibility? Yes, as citizens, yes, but also it is also the responsibility of the people who make policy, who lead the government. So you have to have proper leadership and proper governance of within the health sector, right, to ensure that what people require to ensure that they remain well is available. We also spoke a lot about health in all policies. So when we talked about housing last week, we talked about it. In the same way, you talked tonight about water, right? Water comes under which ministry? Infrastructure, probably.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. Those things are all. Yeah. So I'm really not sure. Yeah.
Yeah. The quality of water that we get determines how well we are. Are we going to have diarrheal diseases? And we have had some diarrhea, right? And vomiting happen. And the water has had challenges, because trust me, I had water that I use as communion wine, okay? They had water coming to my pipe that I might as well not bathe because I'd be dirty after I finish bathe. Right, but so the ministry of whoever provides water is going to have to determine. The people who infrastructure as well will determine whether or not the roads are safe for me to walk, safe without potholes, whether it's sidewalks, whether it's smooth, whether there's any asphalt in at all, or even concrete, and so we can go on and on. The Ministry of Agriculture will determine whether we can have safe foods, whether there are toxins in our foods, like if we're using Roundup, which is banned everywhere else in the
Yes.
world, and I see in the store here like nothing, that agriculture and health should be running that. So everybody has a part to play in ensuring that whatever determines what are the social things, all right, are available to ensure that people are well, or people remain well, or people do not get sick.
Right, lovely. So, folks, tonight we want to focus on education, as we said earlier, and let me just share a little bit with you, before we go into some more details. All right. So, this what I'm going to share with you comes from Medical News Today. That's one of the sites I usually use to prepare myself for when Doc comes on. I need to be able to, converse with Doc. So I use credible sites. And Doc has always encouraged us to, use our smartphones and get credible information that can help us. So, under access to quality education, which is one of the main social determinants of health, it says whether a child or adolescent can access quality education throughout their development can determine their future living conditions. Early childhood education is essential, and is essential for social and mental development, and good quality high school education can open new doors to further education and employment opportunities. Children that come from low-income households, have disabilities, or experience social discrimination at an early age may be less likely to do well in school. They also face barriers to higher levels of education. As a result, people from low-income households often struggle to get safe, well-paying jobs. It also means they are more likely to experience health conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, or depression. The stress of having economic difficulties can also adversely impact a person's health and well-being. For example, living in poverty can negatively affect a child's brain development. So I would just stop here for a bit, and we can actually go through this because there is so much in there to talk about that, we can learn a whole lot. So, Doc, whether child or adolescent access to quality education throughout the development can determine future living conditions. What say you?
I agree with you, and I want us to look at it as a cycle. So, for example, we have Sonia. I'm going to put myself in this platform. I grew up in a home that was poor. My parents didn't have much. My father did subsistence farming, and I miss 2 days of school, right? Every day, because there's Thursday to go and reap and Friday to pack for mommy to go in the market. Somehow I miss days, and usually Friday is probably one of the best days in school because you learn so many other things. Like when you go to primary school in particular, all the fun things and the learning things, the things about life happen in school, happen on a Friday. Yeah. Am I true? Am I right?
Oh yes, singing, general knowledge, you name it.
Community involvement, all the rest.
Yes.
So indeed. I grew up. I don't get to go to high school or get to go to a better school as I grow up. But let's say I finish in standard 7. Huh? I'm going to look at my age group. I don't get to go to high school, and my education or my access to schooling, I'm going to say that, ends in standard 7. Because by that time I already go in the market with my mother. I've been there so often. I know I'm an official market vendor.
Yeah.
But I don't read as much. I'm not interested in the internet as much. I don't even have a cell phone. I have not gone to see movies. I have not had a chance to travel. We may or may not have a TV at home. I certainly don't read. I certainly don't listen to the news. And I'm not saying that people who are not wealthy or poor people don't listen to the news, but I'm saying appreciation of the information. We know that people who are less educated are less information seeking, especially health information, right? For my mom to get her pap smear done, she'd probably nurse have to probably come and fight, and father said, "Oh, it's Thursday, it's pap smear." No, sir. That's when Mary come and help me go in the market, and we dig the yam and we cook and we pick the okra, and you understand, and all the stuff. We know that women who are less educated have more children, simply because they don't understand the how they can access help. How they can access help in containing families. And I'm not saying not to have 10 children if you can afford it. I'm saying that sometimes it makes it worse if you have too many children. We know that women less educated don't seek as much dental care. They're discovered they may turn up with cancer of the cervix earlier. So education is very important. So I grew up in that kind of environment as a child. And I just fall in line because first of all, I don't have example. Unless pastor want to talk about it when I go to church and, they have facilities for me. They may have a health fair once every year in my community. I may go, but if it's day for me to go in the garden, sorry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the cycle continues, okay? We don't go out seeking. We don't consider our mental, physical, sexual health. And a lot of women are depressed because they get caught in this cycle where there's no hope for breaking the fetters that might be around us from a social and economic, especially economic standpoint. And then I get into the cycle of having children, not even recognizing that I can have children, but I don't have to have 10, right? Mm-hmm. Plus, my nutrition state, despite the fact that my family grows food, they grow food for market. A lot of the food goes to market, and having balanced meal is not necessarily available, especially if there's no knowledge, there's no education per se. That look, when you grow 6 cabbage, you keep 1 for your family. You keep some lettuce, you keep some okras, you keep yam, and people would go and they'll buy pasta. Why are you growing food and eating pasta? Or instead of having green fig and fish when the people pass, they might cook some macaroni. Granted, it's easy, or just some dumpling, which is not happy, right? We might have just a big piece of bread in the morning, even if we know that mama have sugar. A big piece of bread with some hot water tea if things bad, or some condensed milk tea to make it look like there's milk in there, right? And piece of bread, and she might have, maybe we do fish cake, right? Or just some margarine, which is not good for us, etc., etc. So education is very important. So we can seek out information, mm-hmm. We can fall in line, we can get ahead, we can step out of the cultural practices that seem to be normal, but are in fact not good for us for things. So education is grossly important. Also, when our children don't have proper nutrition, they don't learn. If your child has malnutrition, the brain doesn't really grow as it should. If your child doesn't have all the protein, nutrition, all the micronutrients and the protein and stuff it's supposed to have, the brain doesn't grow, which makes learning a little harder, which makes us a little socially difficult. We disagree on everything, we get into fights, and then by the time your child is 13, and I'm not saying that rich people and children smoke weed, because that's the example they get, and all the rest. Children who smoke weed young are going to have challenges, because when you get to 13 and 14, your brain, that part of your brain that makes decisions and stuff, right, is that's when it starts to grow, and really, so impulse, being able to make good decisions, to reason and all the rest become challenges, right? So education, understanding, being able to tell parents, children understanding why they need to go to school, why they need to stay in school, why they must not be smoking, why they must not be drinking, why they must not be doing a whole lot of stuff, right? Becomes a challenge to their health, because remember, health is also mental, okay, and emotional, right? So where education is lacking, who leads? Who's responsible? Then it is the responsibility of the primary health care services to make sure that people are informed. Then it's a responsibility of people like the people who do healthcare, like health fairs and stuff, to go out there and share basic, simple information, not Monday to Thursday, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Because the guy who does farming up in the bush, you go to the garden in the morning, people are occupied otherwise. They need to be able to have access to information. We need to have boots on the ground in order for information, health information, to be passed around. We know that people who are uneducated tend to be a little more intolerant, so we have to find you can't put them down. We have to, include them, and you have to find ways to explain in the way that they understand. And they probably wouldn't listen to you the first time, but guess what? If you keep on going, people will eventually say, well, let me have to say. Or you have to speak the language of the people. You have to go to where the people are so that we can inform them. Okay? But above all, we have to also ensure that education is provided, that education is a must. Academic education, that our children must have access, that our children must have proper nutrition. And if it is not available at home, it must be available in school where they spend most of their days. Even one decent meal must be provided for our children, like happens in there are a couple of countries, Mexico. There are a couple of countries that ensure children have to eat in school. The Japanese children eat in school. Mm-hmm. They don't bring lunch to school. The children actually provide the meals. If children learn to prepare meals at school, that's what they're going to have at home. That's what they're going to put in their house. So we have to think, how are we going to create those cycles where our children learn, not necessarily only just academic, but learn experiential learning, where they get to see things, where there's example in their lives to make them healthier and happier citizens.
Right, indeed.
Currently, the Food and Nutrition Council is working on the school nutrition policy, right? So that all our children can have healthy lunches in school, right? We've spoken about a lot of things, and a lot of things that we've spoken about come up here again. The issue of how do we streamline nutrition for our children? If it doesn't happen at home, it must happen somewhere else, so the kids can understand and take information back to the parents. What does a child having for breakfast? Are they having a chubby and a pack of corn curls? That's easy food enough. You can give them that if you want. I'm not advising you to do that, but I'm saying that's only going to make them have energy to go from one meal to the other. But are we going to include balanced meals? Are we going to be able to educate our children about that? Are our children going to be sufficiently well health-wise, mentally, to be able to absorb that kind of information so they can take it back to the parents? Are parents going to be understanding to cooperate, right? And make sure, because like I said, we're in the middle of us. We're always on the cycle. It's always the merry-go-round goes round and round. What are we going to do to make sure that everybody gets a good education, but that the education includes how well am I mentally, emotionally, physically? Okay. If we look at the way we disparage mental health, for example, if your child should come and tell you, I feel so depressed, somebody probably who doesn't understand, who's uneducated about these things, will want to plan as their children. What are you talking about? You want to kill yourself? Let me kill you first. Those kind of stuff. And it happens. You hear parents, you hear children talking about it. But we have to ensure that our families receive the education that we share in school. So if we give it in school, it goes beyond there and it goes further ahead. We also have to ensure that secondary education is accessible to everyone, regardless of whether it's academic education or
vocational or something.
Skill-based education, whatever it is. Everybody must, because what you earn depends on what you learn, right?
That's right.
What you earn depends on what you learn. How your family lives depends on what you earn. Okay? So I can't expect to eat. Food is expensive, right? Food is not cheap, let's say that. But I can't expect to feed my children very well if I don't earn. Right? If already I'm starting at a point where I have 6 children when I'm 25, already I'm in a bad way unless I have a means, right? And we have to kind of break that cycle of poverty, but also that cycle of poverty of knowledge, the cycle of poverty of education. So all of us as a country need to strive to make sure that kids get education, that they understand, and need to collaborate with the bond that the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education are trying to develop, so that our children can be nutritionally well. Remember, a lot of the school nutrition programs, the school meals program, were because we had kids who didn't have it, and they provided milk and whatever and lunch for some of the children. There's a lot of complaints that came out, but the bottom line is that food was prepared so that kids don't come hungry and can't learn. Because what we're doing is keeping that cycle of ignorance and not being able to ensure that people can go from being to be health educated.
Right. Very, very important. And you mentioned, the poverty of education. Early childhood education is essential for social and mental development. And good quality education can open new doors to further education and employment opportunities. This is so significant.
If you look, I remember, let me tell you, in my community, I went to preschool when I was just a little over 2 and a couple months, right? And I was going to school by myself at 2, walking more than a quarter mile, me alone. And I remember with so much love, there was a guy who used to drive the kerosene truck I know where it come from, the Esso truck, put a tiger in it, right? He used to drive for Esso. And when he sees me, because he'd come to my grandfather's shop to sell kerosene, so he knew me, right? My little thing, me alone walking on, mommy tell me walk where the grass is. I just hope there's no snake in the grass. Walk in the drain. I think my mother took me to school one day, and then she let me go. Right? It was safer then, okay? We didn't have people thinking that our roads are
oh boy.
You can tell me about it.
You can tell me about it.
They drive in Concord. But to walk to school, by the time I got to high school at 7 a little bit, right? I could read all the NOLA books.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I was reading Royal Reader I'm 5, and I'm reading Royal Reader up to book 3.
NOLA and
NOLA at school, NOLA at home, NOLA on the farm, and NOLA at play, okay? And then I could read the Caribbean readers up to probably like standard 3. But it's because I had exposure. But more than that, my grandparents had a shop, and I would also I could sell an ounce of butter and know how much money that costs and give change, right? Serious, but I'll tell you, better.
Yes.
More than that, by the time I got to primary school, I was really as an independent child. Going to school in town, right? I was quite independent. Right? So much so that my teacher had to send me to the next class within the 2 weeks. She couldn't manage me. But I knew how to care for myself.
Yeah.
I knew danger side, what were dangerous things. I knew how to look out for bullies. I knew how not to accept bullies. I knew that I had to have my lunch. I had to wash my hands when I went to the bathroom. A lot of the basic things I learned. And above all, I was really very well socialized.
Right.
I was really very well socialized. And so it's so important that we send our children to meet with other children. One of the great things that happens in preschool here, preschool is 3 to 6, right?
Yeah.
Is that the kids, they learn how to, they have good social skills that they build up. They get a lot of exposure, but the whole food and nutrition thing is very, very well addressed at that level. And then we send children to primary school, they're 6 years old, and they can make simple decisions for themselves, right? And we give them money where they had learned such great skills for good nutrition, right? And we know that everything that you do that is good in early childhood spreads into life. We know, for example, and we've been trying to fight childhood obesity, and makes childhood obesity, meaning children who are overweight for the age and height, right? we know that these children have a greater risk of having adult obesity and developing chronic disease earlier. But if you teach a child at 3 and 4 and 5 that sodas are not good for them, that eating too much eating all the highly processed foods, ultra processed products, we don't even call them food, biscuit and corn kernels and potato chips that have too much salt, too much oil, too much sugar, too much refined flour, that's not good. It's not nutritionally sound. Your children will tell you, no, thank you. I was told not to eat that. Mm-hmm. If your children are taught early days to eat fruit as a snack, okay, they would learn it. If your children are taught that Jack's is good for them, Jack's is staple food in Grenada. Some of us don't want our children to eat Jack's bone, go drink them bone, never drink us. We teach our children stuff, and they would eat a good source of protein that is relatively cheap still in the context of what food costs, mm-hmm. and is available to us. And it's indigenous, there's nothing wrong, right? You wash your hand when you finish eat, and you brush your teeth as children should do in school, right? So if we are able to teach, if our children are teachable, it's very important that we teach them the positive things for their well-being, because they will take it into their adult lives.
Oh, okay? Definitely.
It's a question of good habits. But then again, there are the children who can't make decisions for themselves. And if they fall into families where there's a low education standard, it becomes more difficult. Children who have learning disability, who have other challenges and need special education, children who can't be educated because they have physical deformities and all the rest of it, right? It becomes important that families are informed and that they're educated as to how to take care of these children. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example. So, for example, up to probably 40 years ago, no, not so long, 20 years ago, the lifespan for a person with Down syndrome was, what you think?
Maybe about 20s, 30s at most.
30s.
Yeah.
And that is in the families that took care. Today, mm-hmm. I've known people who died at 60.
Yeah, but even people who are the sicklers, at one time it was about 36.
Yeah.
I know people who are sicklers and they're well up into the 70s and counting.
And counting. Mm-hmm. So knowledge is power. Knowledge is power, and the knowledge must be extended to families who are responsible often for people.
Yes.
Education is great. Education also creates integrity in families. So, for example, when a mother develops breast cancer, hopefully she's diagnosed early. But even if she's not diagnosed as early, you want to have people who are understanding and tolerant because they have information. Mm-hmm. I don't want that woman because she don't have no breasts. That is often a thing that is said. She must go to her mother and she must go back to where she come from, because she's not a full woman anymore. And that is people who are not very well educated and actually take on a different attitude mm-hmm. to disease. And otherwise, people lose their limbs and stuff, and we think that a part of them is missing. Not necessarily. But unless we have educated people to understand why things must be done. For example, when we speak of amputations, a lot of people would rather dead than remove their foot.
Yeah.
And I've known of people who have died because they chose not to remove their feet because they're not living without a foot. Simply because we don't understand the importance, how we don't understand the tolerance that can be related to being an amputee or losing a breast or having any surgery, mm-hmm. regardless of what you want to call it. Okay, and until we have an educated population, a population that understands, that can use information that's given to create wholesome lives and to recognize each other and to grow beyond being unhealthy, we're going to have to struggle.
Yep. Doc, before we continue, let's take a call. We have a caller on the line. Doctor and caller, good evening.
Good evening, Citizen Augustine. Greetings.
Yes, good evening. Mm-hmm.
Can the doctor hear me? Is she with you there or through the system?
Yes, she's hearing you.
I can hear him.
Greetings, doctor. Happy New Year, doctor. Anything can say that to you for the year?
No, because you haven't seen me for the New Year.
Listen, very interesting and pertinent information as usual, doctor. I really do commend you on your activities and so on. May the Lord bless you. individual responsibilities for one's life. What is difficult as a child must be taught, etc., etc. And as we go along, if we don't teach them the correct thing and so on, they continue to make mistakes. We give them what they feel they want, and one nice one is in effect poison. But doctor, there is another level of responsibility I'd like to speak about, and to draw reference to some news that came across to me, clearly not through the quote-unquote mainstream Western news media, because you don't hear that there at all. Over the last 3 days, there was a serious issue in Europe about a company called Nestle. And it was divulged. Pardon?
Nestle?
Yeah, that's right. Nestle, that's right. Well, that's right. People say Nestle. That's right. About two of the public products that we use a great deal. Well, not us alone, but the quote-unquote global south, including Asia. And of course, the South Africans took it up, and they really did make us think about it. And the two products named in this scandal, and of course, it's not the first time. One called Nido, which I used sometime in my life. I don't know if you remember as an adult. And the other one is Cerelac, which contains up to, in certain countries, up to 11 grams of sugar per serving. But listen to the thing. In Switzerland and the European market, there is no sugar added for children up to at least 2 years, as stipulated by the United Nations, by the World Health Organization. This is serious, doctor. Do you think that we can do something additionally here? Search for the information, revise it. I had a brief conversation with the nutritionist, Miss, what's the name again? There's a color, the name there is Brown, that's right. See how I remember I saw it by Miss Brown, a color. Anyway, and she promised to look further into it and so on, but she did also mention that years ago there's some honey products and so on which these people have been lying to the Grenadian, the third world and the global south about, because they wanted purpose as established by the doctors in South Africa to get children addicted to sugar in the early stage. I even went on to learn from this said doctor that at the early stage of life, sugar destroys the capacity of the body to build a lining within the gut, which would prevent or restrict or mitigate the absorption of said product. You would know that, doctor. I'm just repeating what I heard. Can you spot some light on that when you get an opportunity? And would you promise it? Would you promise the people of this country to speak about it and call the product out and have our government investigate through this produce chemist laboratory and otherwise the content of sugar in these products, so that our people can begin at least, modifying the way we live? Trust that you got me, doctor.
Godfrey.
Thank you very much. Yep.
Thank you, sir. I think we lost him, but hear me. I think this is a good point because it reflects on education. We've been trying to talk about this nutrition. So there are nutrition standards, okay? We tried to talk about front of package warning label, the octagonal. We talk about it ad nauseum, right? We talked about it for months, right? Yet Grenada voted against front of package warning labels for our population. I don't even know who's Grenada. I can't tell you who are the people who voted, but most of it were industry interests. People who don't want to label their food, but it's going to have to happen because it's going to happen sooner or later. We do have nutrition standards for the knowledge of the caller. We do have nutrition standards. And I know about the Nestle. The Nestle, for example, there was an article that came out. Nestle wanted to buy the global all the water in the world. Really, Nestle? Stop. One of the things I want you to know, however, is that if you bought cereal that was sold in, I'm not going to call it, there's a Caribbean country where they use a lot more sugar than us, okay? Their product, the sugar that is sold to them, the cereals that are sold to them has more sugar in it than the sugar that is sold to us. And so it speaks to the fact that policy, when we talk about who makes the policy, right?
I was about to ask, if
that policymakers have to be informed. So who comes in here as important participants? The Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Sports, the Ministry of Agriculture. You got me, right? Finance and Trade, right? Those are things that have to be, that's information that must be disseminated among everybody. People must be aware. Health education has to take care of that and spread that information. There are times when people in high places have interests and they lobby, for want of a better word, against it. But I'm glad this caller brought us up again, because it's one of the biggest challenges we have towards having good nutrition in this country. I remember as a little girl going to primary school, and I remember Mr. Hines from Hines School saying to us that fisher folk, us 9, telling us how fisher folk will go fishing, sell all the jacks and the bonito and whatever they catch, and then buy a tin of sardine. And go home and give their children 1.5 a sardine, when you could clean a grain of jacks or 2 for each child, and it end up costing about the same thing. And so education again comes back. We have to have knowledge to be able to make these decisions, right? Like I said, the Mexican government has a law against their children eating ramen. Go figure. Ramen is not to be sold for the consumption by children. That's flour and water with too much salt and bad oil. It's cheap, it's accessible, it fills your belly. It gives you absolutely zero nutrition and way too much refined carbs, okay? The Mexican government has a rule. They taxed sugar-sweetened beverages and used of the tax to enhance the quality of information and nutrition that their children had access. They had significant drop in their childhood obesity. And guess what? Mexican children drink a lot of sugar-sweetened beverages. I'm not going to call name on the TV, but they have a lot of, they drink. You know why? Because the quality of water is poor. They have amoebiasis, they have, that's entamoeba, and they have other things, okay? That creates severe, prolonged, chronic abdominal infections and liver cysts and liver abscesses and stuff. So people drink sodas, but it's actually cheaper for people to drink water. So if you're going to bottle a soda, why not bottle water? If you're going to bottle fluids for people to consume, they drink sodas because that's their means of fluids income. They had severe problems. They've had severe problems with child obesity. Once they taxed the drinks, those drinks, they ended up in a whole lot more. Guess what? The consumption of sodas dropped. Okay? The other thing is that we in the health sector have to advise people as to what, as the caller said, as to what is included, as to how to read labels. Okay? So what he doesn't know, for example, is there's actually baby-friendly hospitals and there's a whole baby-friendly policy that we signed onto with the World Health Organization, right? That our children must be breastfed and exclusively for the first 6 months. So a baby is not supposed to get anything. Your baby needs something called DHEA for brain cell development, okay? If you're not breastfeeding, they try to make it up. If you watch our babies who drink tin milk, formula, right? They're always antsy. I'm going to tell you, buy a tin of formula and drink it, especially if you have lactose intolerance. And Black people have a lot of lactose intolerance, for your information, right? You try it. I have tried every single product that's been taken to my office when I lived in that other jurisdiction, okay? And I will have cramps. And I understood why my babies were having challenges when their mothers fed them. because the formula that they're given cause a lot of pain.
Mm-hmm.
And we think it's nicer. You can't take formula into into hospitals. We should not be taking formulas. Our nurses who see to our antenatal, to our postnatal, right after birth, patients must be teaching mothers, ensure that mothers know how to have the babies latch on and get milk. And yes, there's some mothers who are not going to produce milk. And yes, you're not going to produce a lot of milk in the beginning until you get accustomed to feeding. But are we teaching our mothers in antenatal clinic, in prenatal clinic, when you go to pregnant mothers clinic, are we teaching them the importance?
Mm-hmm.
Especially people who don't have high education and don't seek information and not able to go to private physician or some state-of-the-art clinic, okay? We have to explain to them why it's important. So if you have a mother who buys formula, because it's nice, I mean, kind of make it look like it's tush, okay? That you have a tin of milk to give the baby. And the baby's not getting everything he wants. Do you expect him to have normal brain development? No.
Not at all.
Okay?
Not at all.
There was a situation, I think it was lactogen. Forgive me for calling names, but I think that was a product. And in the Americas, where in marketing the products, they gave the mothers the first tin of milk. Right? And she started giving the milk. Remember, some of the mothers have 2 and 3 other children, right? They also need milk, right? So she started giving the formula to the baby. But she gives some to the other children too, because they need milk. It might be a little thinner, but she gives them. And what happened? As time went by, the milk went down less and less. And, you put less and less into the formula. You start to make it brackish. Mm-hmm. That's a word.
Just make it white.
It's very there. It's pseudo representation. But most of the children died in early infancy or early as toddlers died of malnutrition. And they used those tins as headstones in the little cemeteries where these young children were buried. And mommy could have breastfed and given the milk to the other children. The bottom line is that marketing, you talk about big tobacco, big this, big that, they have money. Mm-hmm. And so they market. Everywhere you go, you see a billboard, buy X milk, buy this, buy that. But it's not necessarily good for your family. And I'm telling you, I know, I have seen compared boxes of cereal that came from one place. And like he said, in Europe, they don't have the sugar in the Cerelac. And that is true because the people who make and sustain policy make sure that policies are implemented and that the population is given a fair chance to be healthy.
Right. So
here we have a lot of other, in the Caribbean in general, we have a lot of other levels. And I'm telling you, one of the most, I think the saddest outcome for 2023 in relation to health is the non-acceptance and Grenada voting. But Grenada didn't vote fairly. We spoke about it a lot. People who had interest, right, in having their sugar-sweetened beverages and the other highly processed products that they call food, right, voted against the front of package warning label. Interestingly, places like Argentina have front of package warning label. One of the complaints here was that people, you can't write all of that high in sugar on a sweetie paper because, on a liquor paper. So what the Argentinians did, for example, was develop a numeric system. If you saw one, it meant it was high in fat. You saw two, it was high in sugar, right? So, and they educated the population. That's because that is education. They educated the population to understand that when you buy, I can tell, I've had sweetie paper that I've seen, and you see it in market here because the candies come from there, where it's 2. And in their population, 2 means that this is high in sugar. So if you're buying it, you're taking your own chance.
Right.
So in conclusion to what this gentleman brought, and I'm glad he brought it up, the policymakers and the policy enforcers have to be informed themselves, educated, informed, and of course they have to be responsible morally, socially, and politically and otherwise to ensure that our population receives the quality of education wants and the food and whatever other amenities they require for health. it has to come from a policy level, and it must be enforced at a policy level, and our population must know of it in every single nook and cranny of this country.
Yes, indeed. Now, Doc, this is what you've said is so important, because even in developmental psychology, and this is very, very important, children at school age, now they think about various different topics. And this is how they develop, and I'm going to use a big word here and just break it down, the metacognition. That basically means just, getting a sense of their own inner world, themselves. And that is
and the understanding of the outer world.
Right. And that is important because children who are able to do that, they become very skilled in problem solving. And problem solving is one of the most important part of education. When you are able to solve problems, it speaks heavily to your intelligence. And that can only happen, and going back to what you said, if your brain, if someone's brain is well developed. That can only happen with good nutrition and all of that. So that is very, very, very important what you just spoke of. Before we continue, let's go back to the telephone. We have a caller on the line. Doctor and caller, good evening.
Good evening to you.
Yes, good evening, caller.
Yes, two matters. There was a lady who I was speaking to, and she said she could swear that she got breast cancer by using condensed milk. That's the first one. Secondly, your kidneys, your blood pressure, your kidneys help regulate your blood pressure. The question is, if your blood pressure is constantly high, is there a possibility that your kidneys are not working properly? Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you. A very, very interesting question. Doc, go ahead.
So, this is not a campaign against condensed milk, but it is also a campaign against condensed milk, because condensed milk is mostly sugar and a little bit of that white stuff that we call milk. As a matter of fact, I've been seeing some milk, like milk powder, on the side that says that's called filled milk, and I keep forgetting to ask the nutritionist what is that. Milk has its niceness because it's sweet. We all have been accustomed to having sweet stuff. But I don't know. What I know, there are other components that would lead to, there are lots of things that would lead to breast cancer. And maybe this is a good education time. One, the fact that you're female. Two, your age group between 45 and 55. Three, you're overweight. Obesity has become a major risk factor. Four, you haven't had children. You started your period late. Ended your period late. You haven't, or you have, even if you have children, you haven't breastfed. You use alcohol, which is another top risk factor, and you take hormone replacement. No, maybe condensed milk was the source of her obesity. I don't know. I'm just telling you what I know about what predisposes us to having having breast cancer. That's what we know. Okay. The second question is what again?
He was talking about the kidneys regulating your blood pressure.
Okay. Right. The kidneys regulate your blood pressure. If you're one of the things that we see people with kidney failure is because their blood pressure has been persistently high. And like I tell you, try to imagine, God help us, at some rainfall and fall relatively heavy, not heavy enough to break up the treatment plant. Your kidney is where all filtration goes. Your kidney sieves all the toxins and stuff out of your blood and passes them out in your urine. Okay? If you have hypertension or high blood pressure, as we know commonly, if you do have hypertension, you will have a lot of this blood flowing at this high pressure down to your kidneys and causing damage. People who have, and there are people who have congenital or have early kidney problems. Remember, also diabetes will contribute to kidney problems.
Yes.
And that most people who have diabetes actually have high blood pressure, not necessarily the other way around. But most people with diabetes do also have hypertension. And even if the patients don't have hypertension, we put them on medication to protect the kidney, and it's usually some form of antihypertensive. But what I know is that if your pressure is high, you run the risk of damaging your kidney.
Kidneys. Mm-hmm. Yes.
High risk of damaging your kidney, especially, hypertension, you don't feel no way, or people think they don't feel anyway. Think when you take your medication, how your body feels different. You're less irritable, your head don't feel as funny, your chest don't feel like you have 3 hearts inside it beating at different rhythms, and all the rest of it. You don't feel as tired, you can think more clearly, and all the rest of it. So, yes, hypertension does have symptoms if we understand how we feel when our pressure is controlled.
Right. So, Doc, I just want us to now go to the last part of probably our discussion this evening on the whole issue of education and coming out of what we read earlier. So, everything we said before, as a result, people from low-income households, and we're talking about people who have not been exposed to good education, or the different levels of
education that exists, right?
So people who come from low-income households often struggle to get safe, well-paying jobs. So folks, you're seeing the connection throughout. Now, if you don't have a well-paying job, it also means
you might not have health insurance.
It also means that you are more likely to experience health conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, or depression. And the caller was just asking about, kidney conditions and heart disease. And the final part here, now the stress, note that the stress of having economic difficulties can also adversely impact a person's health and well-being, and we know what stress can do. So if there are, and we see down the line how lack of education can lead to all of these conditions, health conditions that can have you in a bad way. So, Doc,
we've also seen that in populations where, because I think, in all fairness, we have access to education for most of the population, is whether they choose to access or not. Mm-hmm. But if you look at populations Far East, India and stuff, where girls in particular are not allowed to and other places on the African continent where education is not a priority for girls, is not considered a social priority for girls. They must stay home and learn to cook and go find wood and take care of the animals and get married early and have children and all the rest of it, right? We see that these women get into this vicious cycle. They develop diseases much earlier. They get ill. They have hypertension. They have more children. They have a lot of children, and then you get back into this cycle, right? A woman who has a lot of children have the possibility of having hypertension and diabetes earlier, problems with her uterus collapsing, developing cancer, uterine cancer, not uterine, it's called cancer, and all the rest. And so we've seen the evidence out of populations where education, especially to girls, and of course they suffer a lot of abuse, psychological, physical, and otherwise. So we have evidence to prove that where there's no education or low education, that there's a lot of challenge to overall health of the populations not had that access. Okay? And like I said, we still live in an environment where you're not supposed to keep your children home. It doesn't matter. Gender is not an issue per se, right? But whether or not we let the children continue, we allow the girls, do we sacrifice our girls for our boys so the boy can go to university and the girls, or vice versa? Okay? Different families take different ways. It's very important that we continue academic and social education for our children to the point wherever they can go, what their skills, what their talents are. So if a child is good at computer, we push him. If he's good at mechanics and masonry and carpentry and doing joinery and all the rest. We need to push him. Same way for a girl. Why can't a girl be an engineer? Why can't a girl be a mason if she wants to? It's hard work, but yes. Why can't a girl be an architect? Why can't a girl? And same way, we need to push our children to the fullest of their potential. So one, their self-esteem can be appropriately developed. Two, the whole sense of independence. And three, the capacity to give themselves whatever is the best of the best must be there.
Yep, indeed. And I want you to focus a bit on the seriousness of stress and what it can cause, and maybe we can also tie it in with the present climatic conditions. And I always like to find a way to tie in that, because it is very, very important. So lack of adequate education resulting in jobs that are not adequate to keep you going and to get what is required to live a healthy life,
and feeling unfulfilled,
and that's right.
Unfulfilled, because fulfillment comes from being able to enjoy what you do, regardless of where it stations you in life, but being happy with what you do.
And all of that. But Doc, just before you respond, let's just take that call, and then we're going to go into it. Yes. Doctor and call, good evening. Hello.
Yes, good night, Godfrey.
Good evening, caller.
How are you today?
Very good, and you?
I'm quiet, and good night to the doc. Beautiful program. I sit there listening, and it has me numb. But when you raise the question of the low-income household, and I say I would want you to tie that into my subject, the economy, putting people to work, growing the economy, leadership roles and responsibility, accountability to the citizenry. Stress. Yes, it is said in medical quarters that if your brain is broken down from stress, it is likely that it cannot be fixed. Chemicals might be able to be purged out of the system, but when your brain go through stress, it's dead. The cell is dead. And it is worrying to me to know that we are in a situation where some people cannot even meet their daily needs. Yeah? And they have to gravitate to things like the ramen, the macaroni, the flour, the bread, the chubby, the cake as a meal. So all that add up to sugar. And all that damages the brain. So I tied it into the extinction of the population. In other words, even though you go to the doctor and the doctor prescribe and give you the prescription, you will not be able to buy the medication from the pharmacy because of the cost. And therefore you go home. What you go home to do? You go home to die. So we are in a very serious situation. If we are not going to pay attention to the economy, we putting people to work, giving them the chance to have a good salary and to eat the right food. Doctor, thank you. Godfrey, thank you for these lectures. I hope our people are taking note, on our leaders. I hope they are taking note, because they're sitting on a bomb where they might not have people to manage. Have a good night, sir.
Thank you very much, caller.
Thank you, sir. It comes back to the fact that we spoke about policy. And the policymakers have to make sure, because while we do not have, if we had a hurricane tomorrow, right? God forbid, we're not having any hurricane this year. God help us. As long as there's Sahara dust, we may not have hurricanes. But if we were to have a hurricane tomorrow, right? There will be mitigating conditions put in place, right? To prevent hunger and other stuff, okay? And make sure people have shelter and all the rest. So I think we need to understand the status of our population and ensure that there are safety nets, right? But again, let me tell you something. You know that Caritas, Food for the Poor, gives people food, right? How many people eat the beans? Beans cost must be $5 for £2. You can cook 2 meals with a pack of beans. Am I right?
Yep.
Right? But people don't use it. We'd rather go and buy whatever bucket of chicken for 16 or 2 pieces of chicken for $16. That is too much oil, too much fat, too much reused oil that is very bad for you, and a lot of salt and flour that coats it. And then you eat fries that make your sugar fly up very quickly. All right. We have to make sure that our population understands. It is very important while creating safety nets for those who are vulnerable. And the safety net must be there, but we also must tell people. In the US, for example, I think it's WIC, they call it. They have, and even if you're on what do you call it, welfare? No, there are things you cannot buy with your welfare check. You can't buy alcohol. I don't think you can buy sugar-sweetened beverages. You have to buy food that is nutritious. That's what it is about, right? And the children's especially is very tightly controlled, okay? And it may come in as punishment, but the bottom line is that we have to ensure that when we create safety nets, the safety nets are comprehensive. That you don't just give somebody money, right? You don't just say, all right, go by Mr. John and take $30 worth of grocery every day. I'm just saying, okay? I'm saying, you say, here is what's going to happen. I'm going to give you, I'm going to pay Mr. John $30 in a shop for a day. You're allowed to have XYZ, no soda, no alcohol, no tobacco, nothing like that, okay? No noxious substances. But also, you could only have, let's say, 2 pounds of sugar for the month, right? You can have, you must have full cream milk. If there's yogurt, you can buy some yogurt for the children, right? You have to buy peas, you buy chicken, that kind of stuff. So people understand that when we try to create a safety net, it's not just volume that we give you. We also have quality and in the content of what you should have. But we have to, on the side of all of this, educate people as to what is good for them. They have to understand. And yes, you have to tell people over and over. Like I tell you, when you go to church, it's the same Bible pastor use, okay? But every day he has to remind you. We all know where salvation comes from. We all know the Lord. But every time we go, we are reminded how the salvation comes about and how we get there. In the same way, our health educators have to keep reminding people of what their responsibilities, while the people who provide, who ensure that our population stay well, also are reminded of what must be given to people so that they can be well. I know you're concerned about the stress thing. And I think, in my opinion, that's one of the areas I think that we need to study the most. We need to educate the most, because people think stigma related to a lot of stigma related to mental health. I used to work in a mental health facility when I lived abroad, right? And people say, "Oh, you work at that place? Why don't you come? Why are you quit? No, come before we have to come look for you, right? You feel you're not coping, just come in for a consultation. Come and talk. Come and see where your mental health is." We still think about crazy, which is a word that I don't use, which should be taken out of the dictionary, meaning meant to express people, to describe, people whose mental state we're too small. We're 100,000 people, and all of us know almost everybody else. Nobody should be lying on the street, sleeping in the day and night, or anyway. Nobody should be unkempt. Nobody should not be taken care of. And we talked about that last week, how mentally ill people are placed at risk because they don't have homes and they don't have care, right? We see all of that. All those things need to be taken into consideration so that we can have good lives. We need to have no identity, which is for me is the saddest thing. Who's that guy? Oh, his mother used to be. You know, who is he? Where does he come from? What is his family like? People know him, they know, but they can't give you details, because what we've done is throw them behind our backs. Okay. we need to go before that to understand. So, for example, I think all teachers, I think all police, all nurses, all physicians, all people who do frontline duties must have mental health first aid to understand when people are not coping, where they have challenges, to be able to siphon people to the care. I think we need to improve our access to mental health care. Okay? If I get up and I'm not feeling good, I should be able to go and talk to someone and say, I'm not coping. All right? In the workplace, you must have employee assistance programs where, yeah, we have union and all that, but we need to have people within and that people can go and say, hey, I'm having difficulty. The job they give me, I can't manage, but I don't know how to tell my boss this. Or I am capable of doing a lot more. I'm more trained. And, sometimes we send people to never and all that foolishness. But I'm more trained than the job they're giving me. And it's creating a lot of anxiety for me. I can earn more if I'm given another opportunity, if I'm given further opportunity. So people can understand where their coping is not well and they can seek care without being stigmatized, right? Mental health has to be looked on. We saw what COVID did to us when we were isolated and we couldn't sit down and slap our knees with our friends and say, here's what's happening, okay? We need to be able to have not just access, but we have to educate again our population to a position where they can accept mental health issues as much as I've been having this headache for 3 days, I need to take care of it. It must be just another part of our existence, okay? But we have to provide the care that the people need. We have to be open to it, and we, especially we as healthcare givers, have to break the stigma of the whole mental health being something bad. I have colleagues who would not see mentally ill people. One, because some of us just don't know how to do it, but they don't do it because they don't. Because they don't want, they don't have time to do it to them kind of people there. And if we are thinking like that, you go figure. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the whole issue of stress must not be taken lightly. The whole issue of people having suicidal thoughts, which comes on with stress. The whole issue of if your patient comes and they have mental health issues, do you call them the next and say, hey, did you sleep last night? How you feel today? Or even 2 days from now, what you're doing? It's very important because people have to know that you want them to be back and well, right? If we don't do that, if we, from whom they seek care, do not go back and say, hey, Godfrey, how you sleep last night? You feeling any better? How those thoughts of, being very destitute and isolated and alone and confused and your thoughts fleeting, how all of these things going? We have to be able to get to that point.
Yes, indeed. So, Doc, we have time for maybe one or two calls. The number 435-2041. If anyone else has any questions or comment they would like to make, you can do so now because we're getting close to wrap-up time. The number 435-2041. You can do that, and so we can take your questions. Doc, as we wrap, we looked at education and we came down the line, and it is so important that people educate themselves. And I want to say this now because a lot of times, you probably didn't get the opportunity to go to a secondary school or maybe a university or so. But we are living in an age, and Doc, you've said so many times, we're living in an age where information is probably most accessible than any other time.
Most pervasive thing.
Yeah, it is available.
Everywhere.
What we need to do is just access the information that can help us to be better individuals. As it relates to education or academics, people who probably didn't have the opportunity, there are loads of sites where you can get reliable. And just to mention a couple, you have platforms like EDX, you have platforms like Coursera, Coursera, you have platforms like Allison. All you need to do, go online, pull them up, and there are many courses, and these courses are offered by world-class universities. Top-class universities. They just use these various platforms to put the information out there. So, folks, you can go online, you can learn, you can get certified, you can earn diplomas, you can earn degrees if you don't want to go that far, but you can gain a level of education that can put you in a better place. That can put you in a situation where you can earn a little more than you earning now. It can put you in a place where you get to know a lot more than you know now. And when you have education, there's a beautiful thing about education, you know. When you have information, you feel good about yourself. You feel confident. When you're in a conversation, you feel good because you can converse in a manner that others can relate to. So it is very, very important. And just to come into the health aspect of things, if you have the education, you know so much that you might be able to respond to your bodies when it speaks to you. Our body speaks to us, you know. I've learned that. So you understand these things. You get to understand the different kind of headaches. You get to understand the different kind of body aches. You know, sometimes you know your body give you a little juke there and a little juke different places. And don't take them lightly. When you have information, you are in a better position to respond to these things. And so you know what to do. You know where to go. And I've told you before, Doc is located at the Esplanade Mall. First floor. You don't
Upstairs
have
Grand Lake.
Upstairs Grand Lake. You don't have to walk. Take the elevator. And you can get there and you can get a proper examination. And Doc can give you a good diagnosis. And you will be on your way to probably preventing things that could cost you your life. Don't take it for granted. Let me tell you something. I remember once Senator Chester Humphrey said to me, in those days, he wasn't senator yet, but he was in union, and he said, Godfrey, if you want to know how important your work is, try losing it. You know, and this is so instructive because you can apply that to almost any area of life. If you want to know how sweet life is, get sick, and you go find out. You balling? You want doctors to work miracles for you, snap their fingers and work miracles for you so you can go right away. You know, and I'm saying all of this because it is true. It is true. When you feel sick, all kind of different thoughts run through your mind. But you know what? If you have information and you have education, it puts you in a better position. So, folks, think on that. Check online. As I said earlier, you have platforms like EDX, you have platforms like Coursera, you have platforms like Allison, many platforms. You can go and learn. So, I advise you, take advantage. Education is a social determinant of health, a very important one. If you want to live long, you combine education with your social life, your housing, your neighborhood, and all the other determinants. And believe me, you're going to live long. Doc, your final words.
So my final words is that it's up to you. We can only give you information here. We can't we give water. The horse have to decide whether or not it's going to drink.
Yep.
One of the things that I think everybody has is equity, equal access, right? We know one thing, that the higher you are on the social ladder, the more likely you are to have good health, and the lower, just the opposite. So we need to work at this. And there's certain factors that are going to influence, just how this health equity reaches you. Whether you have positive or negative influences, your income and your social potential, your education, employment and job security are going to affect working life conditions, whether you have food security or not, housing and basic amendments, and like water and access road, electricity, and the environment, early childhood health, social inclusion. You feel part of a society, right? Is there discrimination? And we may not have a lot of discrimination with color and stuff, but we do have discrimination where you come from. I don't like them. May not employ nobody who come out in whatever village. Them people up there not good. All of them is thief, right? Those things that people get said about communities. And all children who father or who mother is that it can be good, right? What are their conflicts? What are the structural conflicts in your community? And whether you have access to affordable, decent health services. Those are the things that are going, you have to understand what there is, okay? At the end of the day, there are a lot of external factors. There are a lot of factors that are not directly health related that are going to determine whether or not we're healthy. Think of them. Learn one thing tonight and see how it applies in your life. Am I going and get my screening? Do my children go to the dentist from early? Am I going to antenatal care? I just discovered I was pregnant. Am I going to go get antenatal care early? If I have a problem, can I go and talk to my nurse? Maybe I should talk to a nurse about this big toe that I don't like how the nail look. When my mother and my father have sugar, am I going to go get screened? This washout milk for my children, no. Maybe I should just have them have callaloo and whatever thing, pak choy and spinach and stuff instead of giving them the foolishness that I give them. Whatever is required, walking, exercising, just going on the beach and sitting with your family and watch the sunset, watch people pass. Do stuff. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money, social life. We have to go there and socialize and become healthy emotionally, talking to somebody when you have problems. All of those things are very important for us to live.
Yes.
There's so much to teach, but sometimes I feel we give you so much information. Ponder on whatever you remember tonight and see how you can improve your family. Encourage your community people, because we all have to grow together. No man is an island. Make use of your health centers in the community. Every 3 miles in this country, within every 3 miles, you can find a health center. Go and say, hey, I just want to get checked up. My child hasn't had I don't think my child has had all his vaccines and all the rest of it. Those are the things we need to get doing instead of talking foolishness on the phone and TikToking things that don't make sense. Look for information. It's all there. The phone is my favorite place to look for information.
Yes.
And I just want to put a plug here, and I'm going to remind people as we go along. We have a big population of sickle cell disease, and Grenada has its heritage. I talk about it all the time with a lot of pride, that the first person who was discovered with sickle cell disease is a Grenadian who's buried up in the Sotel Cemetery named Walter Clement Noel. Next month is Sickle Cell Month, but here's what's happening. Up to now, we've only had clinics, regular clinics for children. As of next month, later this month. Anyway, if you're a senior, if you're an adult, or if you're over 18 and you've never known, you know that you had sickle cell and weren't going to the clinic, anybody over 18 who has a full-blown sickle cell disease will participate in those 2 clinics. Information, this is education. When you go to clinic, you'll understand more about your disease. You'll understand how you can live to be 80 instead of being 40 or 30. You'll understand what you should and shouldn't do, especially since it's so hot. You'll get more details. There's a clinic currently. There will be a clinic at St. George's in the General Hospital outpatients. I think it's May 21st. And then May 21st. And then on May 25th, there'll be a clinic up in Grenville. And those clinics will be monthly. So as the 3rd Tuesday and the 3rd Friday, I think, in a month. So please be there or be square. This is an opportunity for another population of people to understand disease and to have information to share. So we'll have less deaths and we'll have less preventable deaths. Okay? The other thing is that it's really hot. Please remember the old people at home. Remember that they need water. Even the water in the pipe is kind of hot. So if you can collect water in the night when it's a little cooler, make sure that there's ventilation. Make sure that you prevent them from mosquito bites. Make sure that they have a lot of fluids in the day. And if you can, do a little coconut water. That's going to make it better. Make sure your children are properly hydrated. I know there's a march tomorrow. Please wear your umbrellas. Please, I beg you. You shouldn't be out in this heat more than 15 minutes. And I know it's a great day for all the workers, but please make sure you have water and other rehydration fluids, and that you have you cover yourself from the direct sunlight. Congratulations to all the workers, up ye workers of the world. Thank you for all that you do to make sure that this country and the world as a whole progresses. Whatever your job is, unionized workers, congratulations. Have a wonderful Workers' Day tomorrow, International Workers' Day.
Yes, thank you so very much, Doc. And let me just join you as well in wishing all workers, happy May Day, happy Labor Day, whatever it is. Go out there, have fun. But of course, just a reminder again, wear appropriate clothing. Remember, it's very hot outside. We are in the age of climate change. So please be careful.
No fun.
Make sure that you're well hydrated, you have enough water, keep yourself cool so that you have no problem. Thank you very much for staying with us tonight, folks. It was indeed a pleasure sharing the information with you. I will be back next Tuesday for another Doctor on Call. All the best. Have a good one.
Good night, everyone.
Yes, indeed.